Kia ora, welcome back to Under the Whāriki. I'm Anatola.
I'm Tahu.
And today we're talking about body image and eating disorders.
With Dr. Kate Hebenton,
Kia ora.
clinical psychologist. Tērā koe. So just to give our audience a little bit of background of who you are and where you come from and what you do.
So I'm Kate, Dr. Kate, or Kate. I am a clinical psychologist, like you said. I grew up in Mount Maunganui, so lived there. Yeah.
My friends live in Pamoa. Sorry, I'm
nice.
throwing you off.
Nice. Yeah. I moved to Auckland to do my training, to do my doctorate in clinical psychology, and now I have a private practice 371 in Finau, where we specialise in eating disorders and body image, and I also work at Middlemore Hospital in the paediatric ward. Yeah.
Amazing.
Beautiful.
I'm so excited to learn from you today and have this conversation, which is so important. And also really tricky to have, you know, because we also want to make it as safe as possible for people to consume it. So to kind of get the space kind of warmed up a little bit, we have a little icebreaker. It's the icebreaker where we say yeah, nah, nah, yeah. So I'm going to say a statement, and then you're going to say yeah, nah, nah, yeah, with Tahu and myself, and then we're going to have a little kōrero about it.
Okay.
Cool? So all you have to respond is yeah, nah, nah, yeah, and then we can have a little chat. Sometimes we judge each other for our answers, but it's okay. It's fine. It's, you know.
Judgment is allowed.
Judgment is allowed in this segment. Cool. Okay, so stacking your plates when you're finished eating at a restaurant. Yeah, nah, or nah, yeah?
You mean just cleaning up?
Yeah, just clean up after yourself once you've eaten kai at a public space.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Nah, yeah.
Yeah.
Nah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, growing up, I always, when we were little, going to the base or somewhere, a mall, there was always old Māori nannies as the clean-up crew. And I always felt sad.
Yeah.
So I'd pick my plates up, take my tray over to them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm a yeah. And mum and dad would slap my hands if I did it.
I feel you on that one.
Or my mouth.
Any part of the body.
Whoever's the closest. Yeah.
Whatever object you throw.
But yeah, I'm a nah, yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Okay.
Situational, maybe.
Yeah, perhaps.
Which way does it go round?
Nah, yeah.
Nah.
Or yeah, nah.
Nah, yeah. At food courts and places like that where kind of more self-service, but in a restaurant.
Where you're paying for the service.
Yeah, or they're better at their job. You know, they're good at stacking and I'm not.
Right.
I did work as a waitress a little bit. I'm horrific at it. So it just sort of feel like you do your specialist skill where you put them all. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know which way they go around,
You're
but you know,
yeah.
everything. Yeah.
A little bit of everything. Yeah, I love that. Depending on the situation, the environment. I'm with you, Tahu. I'm a nah, yeah. I feel like I would be slapped in all ways possible if I didn't. Also, I like to think of the little angel on my shoulder as my nana, and what would nana do? She would stack the plates.
Yeah.
And also in Tamaki Makaurau, most of the people that bring the trays in a public space are older Pasifika women too. So I feel like that's my nana or my auntie. And so I always feel a little bit I want to make sure that they know that I respect them. And I think I don't like when people are well, that's their job. But I'm common decency is just to stack your kai so that it's easier to just bring it back. So I'm a full-blown yes, but nah, yeah.
Controversial topic you started with.
Oh, really?
Also, stuck moving from the Mount to here?
People always say that to me, why do you live here?
It's straight up, because I come up here and it just brings me straight up.
Oh no, I'm gonna say that.
Yeah. And I know, living at the mountain, it's just the best.
Look, things that had to get, getting used to checking the poo map before you go to the beach.
Yeah, right.
That's a tough adjustment for Auckland.
The what map?
The map, is there poo in the ocean? Map.
Right.
Oh, the map.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
After a big storm in Auckland, you can't go swimming sometimes. Yeah, it's not a thing in the mountain, so that's been a tough adjustment. I feel you're looking at me what are you talking about?
You're just swimming in nature.
I need to swim. Oh my god, that's good to know, Kate. You've just taught me something to check.
Yeah.
Water safe, I think it's called. They put little red flags at certain beaches, don't go there. Yeah.
Because the stormwater runs in.
It's running.
Right.
Yeah. That's been a tough adjustment, but
Yeah.
That's been a tough adjustment.
Wait, why do they have it here in Auckland and not in the Mount?
Because we don't have the same problem there. I don't know. I don't know,
'Cause we're
people.
Because we're better.
Better, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Look, it does mean I'm a massive beach snob too,
Yeah,
as well. It's
I
hard to
bet.
grow up in the mountain and go other places.
Other beaches, yeah.
I find that I'm Tongan, so whenever I go back to the islands, like it's just the water's just so different there.
Yeah, no.
It's just elite. It's just it's just the best,
It is.
So when you come here, you just take what you can get,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
So I feel you on that. Yeah.
Anyway, let's
Anyway,
turn to
sorry.
your quiz. Yeah, I'm asking too many questions. Okay, so you're going to give us a prop quiz?
Yes.
Okay, and we're going to have our whiteboards. Oh, no.
Oh, wow.
To write our answers, and we're very competitive. There's also
Yeah.
judgment allowed in
There
this
is a
space.
lot of judgment.
Okay.
But we kind of have to explain our answers or justify them a little bit.
Yeah. We have
Okay.
to advocate for them a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So the first question is, who is most likely to experience an eating disorder?
Oh. Like a name of a person? Sam's or like... No, is it like a demographic or...
Just whatever comes to your
Okay,
mind, yeah.
I'm thinking...
My answer's not like a straightforward answer.
Okay. Do you want to go first?
Yeah. So
Okay.
my answer is I think everyone can experience an eating disorder.
Oh my god.
Is that what you said too?
No.
Oh, okay.
I've just gone straight judgment. I went girls between the 13
Yeah,
to 24 range.
Yeah.
Rangatahi range.
Okay. So definitely when we think about eating disorders, generally people think young, white, heterosexual, cisgendered women. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So you are what people often think. Your answer
Stereotyping.
is the correct one.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Thank
Eating
you.
disorders do not discriminate.
Thank
I actually have some little statistics with
Okay.
me.
Oh
So
my gosh, yes.
7% of people with eating disorders identify as Māori. 30%
Wow.
of people with eating disorders are autistic.
Oh.
71% of transgender people have experienced an eating disorder.
Wow.
50% of bisexual or homosexual people have experienced an eating disorder. And 30% of people with eating disorders identify as male.
Wow.
So really, really varied.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a little bit like more hidden, because
Yeah.
we see girls as the
Yeah.
targeted, demographic of how we see it in the
Yeah.
social settings.
Yeah.
But males, everyone.
Everyone, yeah. And I think that's why it's like a lot of people will expect that from, like, as you said, like young, white, heterosexual women, cisgendered women, because I think we see it more visibly, like on film, on television. Also, I think like as just for in my experience as Pasifika, we love food, so it's like the idea of us having a problem with that. I think we really struggle to kind of make sense of that as a collective.
Yeah.
So and also like we pride ourselves as being bigger people. So I think like I don't know, that's just my kind of perception of that on the side of like Pasifika people as a whole. So I wonder if that could be why.
Weird.
I don't know.
Right. Is that how many questions there?
4.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, okay. What percentage of people with an eating disorder are medically underweight?
Can you say that again, sorry?
Yeah. What percentage of people with an eating disorder are medically underweight?
Wow.
Oh, I always hate these percentage questions because you're like, have I gone too low? Have I gone too high? Have I gone, like, oh.
Okay, I locked it in.
Right.
Oh,
Whoa, 33%.
Wow. Okay.
are you
so-
and your odd number?
So the answer is 6%.
What?
Yeah, 6%
everyone else
of
is
people
over.
with eating disorders are classed as underweight.
Holy shit.
Oh,
How
so
much
like
was-
they have the disorder thinking that they're not.
So eating disorders are not just about weight. People often think an eating disorder is an underweight person, which is
Wow.
anorexia, but medically underweight is is according to the BMI. So lots of people have anorexia and would not be classed as medically underweight.
A question,
Oh my
Kate.
God.
I know
Yes.
we've got questions and we've got a
Yeah.
whole episode, but like BMI,
Stupid.
shit, right?
Yeah.
I know,
Yeah.
because on the BMI,
Yeah.
I'm like morbidly overweight.
I wish.
And I was like looking at it like, am I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
It's horrible.
Yeah.
It was, well, here you go. Here's a little background on the BMI.
Do your spiel, Kate.
It was developed by a statistician, and it was just about looking at where people sat on kind of a bell curve of weight,
And height.
possibly around like a wartime.
Right.
It was done on all males,
Right.
and as far as I know, all white males.
Yeah.
Right.
It was never intended as a health measure. It was adopted by American insurance companies.
Right.
Yeah, and it used to be that the normal range for the BMI, I think, went up to the 27 mark, and then insurance companies in, I think, the 90s shifted it down to 25. So overnight, a section of people went from being, quote unquote, normal to being overweight.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, word.
So, yeah, I would.
Oh
yeah.
my gosh. And why do we still use that if we know that this is the history of
Easy.
Yeah, and like I think the medical community, a lot of people still believe in it. Yeah, they just love it. Yeah, the big problem with it is it doesn't ask about lifestyle. It doesn't ask about health behaviours. So if you simply get your height and weight and this is where you sit, no one's asking, okay, well, what does your nutrition look like? What does your relationship with food look like? How do you like to move your body? Do you smoke? Do you drink?
Yeah.
What are your stress levels like? What are your social connections and supports
Wow,
like?
yeah.
It's just your height and your weight.
Wait.
Yeah.
It really threw me off because at school, like, I had 6-pack. I don't want to say it, but I had a 6-pack. I was like 90 kgs, same height, and I could run 10 k's an hour. I was really athletic at school, and I was still overweight there, and on the BMI.
Yeah.
And I was like, what in the world?
Yeah.
Now I'm still the same height, like 30 kgs more, no longer 6-pack.
Yeah.
So it was like really off-putting to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that would be for a lot of like athletes and
It
a lot
doesn't
of
take in muscle density.
no,
or
a lot of
anything like that.
ethnicities. It doesn't really work as well for. It's just a very crude
Right.
measure. It's not great.
and outdated.
Deeply.
Right.
So outdated.
Yeah, yeah. So 6% of people are underweight.
Wow.
The other thing to know is that eating disorders have the second highest mortality rate of all psychiatric disorders. And so being underweight is not the measure of risk. That's kind of the important thing to know. So this affects all people in all bodies of all backgrounds.
Man.
Yeah.
Wow. And I think that's really important for people to know. That it's not just a certain
Yeah.
group. You know,
Yeah.
this can,
Yeah.
yeah. I've got more questions in my head now. I'm like,
Okay.
I want to.
Yeah.
This is it's going to feel like a very big question. How can we prevent eating disorders?
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah, we're.
Okay, this is a joke, but earlier today I was having a cigarette and yesterday, and Tahu said the best way to quit smoking is by never starting. And then I was about to say, never start. to not ever. Okay, but now
Sorry,
we're
I'm stuck on that.
yeah.
What was the question again?
How to prevent?
How can we prevent eating disorders?
That is a big question.
Yeah, so if you could just come up with a simple answer, that would be
Oh, simple, Kate.
to solve the whole issue.
Oh,
that would be
God.
amazing. Nice.
That is not a simple question. What?
I don't know. Okay. I said empowering language and respectful treatment.
I went education.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, both right. Eating disorders are very complex. There's genetic, there's biological, there's environmental factors. So there's no one fix at all. But a big part I just am taking an opportunity to make a little statement here, is we need to acknowledge that we live in a society that's built on white supremacy and the thin ideal.
Talk on it, Kate.
And if we do not acknowledge that and all the fat phobia, then we cannot really address all the other issues.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Tau talk with that for sure.
Fat phobia. What a word. Yeah.
Have you heard that word before?
No.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Could you explain what that word means? Fat phobia?
So it's kind of just the stigmatizing of, I mean, the word fat, I guess, is a complicated word for a lot of people. It is a word that is being reclaimed by many people as this is actually just a description of my body. It is a neutral description. It does not mean anything bad.
Absolutely.
But it's often used as a bad thing, or it's kind of like we should avoid it. Our whole lives should be, it's horrible. And fat people are often seen as being unlovable, as being lazy, as being unhealthy. So it's kind of, and that is everywhere. It's all throughout our society. Yeah.
I love that. It's a descriptive word. There's no negative thing associated to it. Just like tall,
There's heaps of
short.
positive stuff.
Yeah.
Like you cooking fat, cooking Hindu, delicious. You don't cook it skinny.
Exactly.
No, I don't want to mock skinny, but you know. Carry on. Okay, is this last question?
Yes.
Okay.
Who do we believe can recover from an eating disorder?
Wow.
I don't know if I'm answering this right, but...
Yeah, I think I'm on the right lines now.
Yeah, okay.
I think I've
Yeah. Everyone?
Anyone?
Yay!
Yeah.
Absolutely. So recovery, we believe in recovery for everyone.
Cool.
You know, there are going to be different barriers to recovery for different people. That is important to acknowledge. But if you are someone who is struggling to find support, or you wonder, am I sick enough? Am I deserving of this? The message is your story matters, your healing matters, and your recovery matters.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a bar.
Yeah.
That's a bar.
wicked.
That's the moment. Awesome. Thank you so much.
I saw that on Instagram and I stole it.
Hey, all great things to come
If you want to be a psychologist, doctor,
beautiful.
go to Instagram.
Go to Instagram.
Yeah.
I love that. Oh my gosh, it's so amazing to have these conversations about this, because I find like in the world that we live in now, it's just high technology and consumption, and people just have access to everything on their phones. What do you find is the most harmful place where we're having a lot of this like conversations around body image and eating disorders that are harming like Aotearoa the most?
Oh, it's so hard to pick one
You can pick a few.
place, yeah. I think, look, it's everywhere. It's in the medical communities. It's in social media. I mean, we know social media is an absolute minefield, particularly for young people. Yeah. I think it's happening in schools. It's happening in families as well. And it's not about blaming anyone, because everyone grows up in the same society. So everyone is getting these same diet culture messages. But as a young person, if you're hearing in your home, in your school, in the doctor's office, online, with your friends, the same messages, it's hard to not believe, of course, I should be thinner or healthier, whatever that means. So it's just everywhere. That's the real difficulty, I think.
And it's not just wanting to be thinner, eh? People wanting to be bigger. Like how you said, only 9% are underweight. Would there be so many that... does the body positivity work the other way, where people want to be bigger and they feel too skinny? And
yeah, so there can be a real... I think as we see like the trends of body shapes change, so we've just had that more like... I guess informed by the Kardashians a bit, more like muscly toned booties. Yeah, that people often might sit at a different weight, but they're still so focused on food and calories and exercise and just controlling their body and trying to make it what they think they should look like. And so again, we'll probably see those trends change as they do over time, and then there'll be a new pursuit. But yeah, often as like with males, an eating disorder might look different. It might be, we might see more males, bulking, clean eating, those kind of things,
And there's nothing like saying there's nothing wrong with wanting to clean eat and exercise and things like that. So where is the line where wanting to get to a certain figure or lose a bit of weight or gain a bit of weight is healthy and positive? How do you stay healthy and positive in that space where you know you're a little bit overweight and maybe I should get off my ass and go for a run? You know, where does that line sit where it's not unhealthy to think that way?
Yeah. I think the really tricky thing is that the idea of weight and health have been really put together, and that is really not always the case. Yeah, people can achieve health if they wish. Health is not something you have to achieve, but you can achieve that in any body. And so focusing more on our health behaviours, so our movement and our nutrition and things can be more helpful than focusing on the number. Yeah. In saying that, we do not, like in our practice, we are against diet culture. We do not like diet culture, but we are not against people who engage in diet culture because it's everywhere. No one is to blame. I think the difference, the line can be, is thinking about how much of my life is this taking up? How much of my time is this taking up? So, you know, we see young people who might say, I spend 80% of my day thinking about what should I eat or shouldn't I eat. I spend my whole day tracking food or thinking about exercise. I'm missing out. I'm not going to do things with my friends. I'm not going to family events anymore because it's too stressful. It's too anxiety provoking. Maybe I have an injury and I'm still going to go exercise each day, even though that might be causing harm to my body, because not doing those things causes so much distress and anxiety. Yeah.
I love how like you're saying that, because I feel like, not obviously about the information, but I'm meaning like, I think a lot of the times when we see things, we see it in a very like narrow-minded way. Like we don't see the complexities and how far and like the spectrum of all these experiences are. And I feel like I love what you said about how like, you know, like it's no one to blame. We're all just like kind of like circulating this information. And to quote the great philosopher Ice Cube, you know, he says we're a product of our own reality, and we are like we act and we react in ways that we've seen before us. So it's like this generational thing that kind of circulates, right? But I was thinking like while you were talking, like growing up in my family, my nana, she's like in Tongan culture, like for women, like the bigger you are, the more voluptuous you are, the more beautiful you are. And so we have a saying called fo'iva'e, which basically means like big legs. And like for Tongan women, like if you have fo'iva'e, you can like perform and you're like beautiful. And if a girl or a person has a small, slender body, they're like, oh, it looks weird. It's not, you know, attractive to them. And so growing up, like with a nana that was just like, you're so beautiful. You're just the most beautiful girl in the whole world. And I would go to school and people would be like, you're fat, you're this. And I'd be like, I'm the most beautiful girl in the world. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about. And so like the differences of culture and like, how we perceived bodies, and like growing up, the bodies that I loved were the bodies that were larger because they looked like my mom and they looked like my nana and they looked like my auntie. And then I would go on magazines and I would see bodies that look so different to mine. I'd be like, wait, so that's beauty? And like, what does that mean? And so like when we're talking about beauty standards, right, like you said about Kardashians, do you find like Aotearoa's further away from those like influences, or we're like in the midst of like influences from those around us? Or is it quite different for our beauty standards here?
No, yeah, I think we're probably pretty in the midst of it all. Yeah. I mean, an important thing for me to acknowledge is most of our clients that come see us are Pākehā. So that is the lens of which much of my work is through. So yeah, definitely those influences, the Kylie Jenners, the Fitspo, all of that are really big and have infiltrated a lot of our country. Yeah, but I think what you're saying is really incredible, like the protective nature of that a family or an environment can create is amazing. Yeah.
It's definitely environment, because growing up, even like we've got unwritten laws at the dinner table where, you know, more is better than not enough. Those type of things. So we're always overplating, always have too much kai. Yeah. And, you know, like, you see all this kai and then you feel wasteful if you're not eating it. So then everybody's always eating. So they're like narratives that have been pushed on us since little that, you know, there should always be enough kai and you should always feel like eating, and you're ungrateful if you're not eating, if you don't clean your plates, you're not leaving the dinner table, all those type of things. So, and then to come into a world where it's like, don't put that much on your plate. Or when you go to a restaurant and then you feel like it's a small plate, you're like, why is there not that much kai on my plate? It's hard to get your head wrapped around that. So how do we change the narrative into being a positive thing across cultures? How do you address it culturally?
That's a very good and big question. I think it's so much as those individual conversations you have in your families and in your communities. I'm just thinking, I have a friend who has a 4-year-old, and like you're saying about your nana, she says things like, oh, Mum, look at my body. Mum, look at my arms, they're so strong. Mum, look at my big belly. Oh, Mum, I'm beautiful. Like, Mum, are we beautiful? Like, and I just love seeing that, and it's like, oh, I hope that stays. Like, how can we encourage
how do you
more
not beat
of
it out?
that? And it's having all those conversations within your communities, but I think it is the bigger things we've got to keep an eye out for. You know, it's all well-meaning, it's coming from a good place, but the number of stories we hear about, like, we were all weighed in math class to do like graphs. So that might feel really neutral, but probably to the kids at the top end of that graph, it's not a very neutral experience. And that really sticks with people. There's nutrition information being given out at schools, and it can feel really well intended, but if food starts getting put into good and bad categories, that can be really complicated, especially what if your family eats from some of those bad categories, and then you go home and you're like, well, how do I match the information I'm getting?
I think that's so important, and it kind of weaves into another conversation, because I know, like, for a lot of people in, like, South Auckland in particular, they're trying to minimize, like, you know, like, places where you can buy alcohol and takeaways. And if you go through, like, Mangere, for example, right, and then you go through, like, Remirua, you're going to experience 2 different communities that have access to 2 very different streams of kai, right? And so
and different resources.
And I feel like I don't see any KFC or any McDonald's at Remirua. And not saying that's bad food, but I'm just saying, like, when we think about all of this stuff, I feel like people make it so punitive to the community that exists there. But I'm like, well, if you only have access to these things, or we think about money access and all of that stuff, of course. And also, like, if you think about KFC, like, it's a big bucket. You can feed more than 2 people. If you have larger families, if you cater to more people, you're going to be more inclined to getting that type of kai. And so when I hear people talk about that stuff, I'm like, well, it's access, right? And resourcing and all of that stuff. And so when you're doing your job, how do you have conversations like this on the daily and try to educate people about access, about resources, but also most importantly about language? Like, what's safe language? How do we have these conversations with our tamariki and our rangatahi so that they grow up not with the same burdens that we have? Like, what does that look like in your practice?
So language, I think, it's such an evolving thing, and it is so personal. So like I said, the word fat for some people feels empowering or neutral, and for other people it's off limits. So I would never introduce the word, I would never call a client fat if they had never used that word first. We might talk about fat phobia, so I'll introduce the word, but how people use that is up to them. Because we don't use words like the O word, as you said, like obesity and morbidly obese. We find those to be really punitive and unhelpful categorizations. They're kind of used as if they mean something, like it's a disease. It actually is just a description of a body. It doesn't tell us anything because we do not have any other information about a person. What does that mean if you are the O word? So we don't use those words. Like, lots of clients might still be using a lot of diet language, but it's about exploring. So people will say to me, I want to be fit. So I said, well, what does being fit mean? And does being fit look a certain way? You know, because I'm like Valerie Adams, I'm sure she is incredibly fit.
Icon.
But according to
the best thing
Sorry, Tom, just to say.
Yeah. But if she wasn't Valerie Adams, some people might not assume she was quote unquote fit.
Yeah,
So it's just kind of exploring, like when you use that, like the word I want to be healthy. Okay, what does that mean? It's just more exploring, and what are we talking about when we use these words? Yeah, because they can get really, like you said, narrow and mean one thing.
So maybe instead of like classing it as this broad fit word that means so much things, do you try and look at ability? Like, I want to be able to hold my breath for 2 minutes because I like to free dive, you know? So, like, I want to go down and get crazy. But I also smoke a pack a day. So it's like, you know, there's things like that. So do we try and chase the ability of something instead of the goal, fitness, or a number?
Yeah. So we often talk about, like I said, health behaviours. So how do you like to move your body? What is joyful movement? And that doesn't have to be in a gym or at an official class. It might be dancing at home with your kids, or playing sport at school at lunchtime, or, you know, there's so many different ways to move your body. How do you like to nourish your body? Like, what feels good? And rather than what should we take out, we think about, okay, what should we include more of? So sometimes people might go, look, I think I am mostly eating food of convenience at the moment. Okay, well, how can we add maybe more vegetables into your existing rather than cutting out and restricting? Looking at, like, people really underestimate all those things like social supports. Who are you connected to? How is your mental health? That is a huge part of all of this as well. Stress levels, all of those things are all important. And if we focus on those rather than your weight or looking fit, whatever that means, there's more conversation to be had. Yeah.
I love that you've really seen it in a really empowering way. And I think, like, when it comes to bodies, we see such negative things in spaces, and I love the new movement of people really talking about bodies in a really empowering way, like the movement of like fat bodies. And I follow an incredible person on social media, and their name is Pori Mama on Instagram, and I just love how they just exist and authentically and genuinely, but yet get so much hate and so much judgment from people. And when I think about it, I'm like, oh, that's just projecting, right? Like, those people are just projecting their own insecurities. So, like, when we think about positive, like, outlets for bodies, because we all do live on our phones and our, you know, the world of social media, where do you think are great places for people to go to kind of access more positive information about bodies?
Yeah, so everyone needs to kind of find who they connect with, but I think the more variation you have in your social media of different bodies, it becomes really normalized. Like, okay, here are all the different bodies that exist. I really like, I think her name's Megan Jane Crabb. She's a woman in the UK. She used to be called the Body Positive Panda, and has done a bit of a rebrand because she's gone, okay, body positivity isn't quite the movement I agree with or I connect with. But again, it's lots of her just living in her body. What's her name? Alicia McCarville, I think, is a Canadian woman. Again, just a woman in a bigger body, living, sharing her clothes. And so everyone's really different. There's kind of the advocacy, body sort of fat justice places you can go to. For some people, it's just nice to look at women who are like a size 18, 20, trying on clothes, living life, being happy, and it's not all about activism or I have to prove my worth as a fat person. It's just fat people living. There are so many psychologists and dietitians who put themselves forward as the health at every size, who will share lots of really helpful, wonderful information. So once you kind of start looking, you'll get recommended more and more, and you can just have a look and see what works for me.
Do you think that these are very like woman-based spaces though? Like, are there any helpful like spaces for men, since we are saying that it creates this is prevalent for all people? So is there spaces that are more focused on tāne, like men?
Probably far less.
Right.
Yeah. And look, my algorithm is probably very heavily
Me
weighted
too.
to women
Yeah.
as well. So like, yeah, but I'm sure I think they're probably, but less. I think that is important to acknowledge. Like,
it's really hard for Tiny too, because like you see all the images of, or like even your bros growing up, they all have their shirts off, and
Yeah.
it seems like dudes with six packs only ever have their shirts off.
Exactly.
Besides me, honestly.
I love that, Tahu.
Yeah, I love my body.
This joy right here.
I'm really like, but I don't push body positivity or anything on my social platforms. I wear my shirt off often, and I even have posts with just my shirt off or things like that. And but I've found it's had a negative, some negative, what's the word, teachings or whatever they are to my whānau, my younger siblings, because they're still growing up, still learning about that space. My little sister, she's beautiful. Like, she's just turned 16 or something, and she's beautiful, stunning. She's like the perfect Fitspo looking person. And just good genetics. I don't know how it must be. Anyway, she started making posts about body positivity, and like she was like really bending down, having rolls and stuff, and she was trying to like say like, be positive about your body, woman, blah, blah, blah. And I had to explain to her, I was like, baby, you're in no position to kind of push the fat, love your fat on you, because you're perfect. Like, you're already in this space. And I know for her, like, I understand that anybody can discuss those things, but for her, it was a way of relating to what seemed like a trending topic at the time, with hine coming out and having body positive models and of all different kinds of sizes, and her wanting to jump on that trend. And so where does the trends and things like that kind of have a negative impact on our kids, where they want to join in on something where they're maybe not educated or haven't had any lived experience, or don't have anything to do with it, but just want to be a part of it? Or is that okay?
I mean, I think there's positives to it. It is one of the issues with the body positive movement. It was actually started out of fat activism with usually black queer people as well. And it's been really co-opted by mostly thin white women now. Doing what you're saying. Bodies that look like this, who are tall and slender, they also look like this, and they can bend over and make rolls. But a lot of fat people are left saying, well, my body looks like that when I just exist. So I don't have the luxury of standing up and hiding those things away. So I think there's space for everyone, but we have to make sure that the people who are the most affected get their voices put forward as well, and it doesn't just become what we call straight-sized or thin white women, because it's happened in the health at every size movement too. A lot of the people making the most money at the front selling their books are straight-sized white women. So it's just important that all voices, and that if they get to hear all voices, because often the thinner people will be really celebrated for the body positivity, like your sister's saying. And then if a fat person does a post, they'll get said, oh, you're promoting the O word. So unhealthy,
Lizzo.
She gets so much hate. And
she's a queen. But I also, like, I think people's fixation on her body and on both positive and negative, like, I'm like, but she's just a bomb-ass artist. I feel like the fixation of bodies in general, like, I think whether it's positive or negative, I'm like, it's got nothing to do with anyone. Like, it's just a part of who we are, but it's not everything we are. And I feel like sometimes she gets put into such a category and we don't focus on her talents. And I feel like that's the damage of just bodies in general and our fixation on bodies. So I love me some Lizzo. But I have a question before we finish up. What do you think as a society we can do better when it comes to body image, and then obviously to the extent where someone were to experience eating disorders? What can we do as a society to really focus on being better?
I think kind of in our individual and our families and our communities, being really conscious of how we talk about bodies and what we say about like our own bodies. I think often people think I'm talking about my body, but other people are listening. That is and they feel that when you say, oh, I'm so fat. You know, someone in a bigger body than you may be having a response to that. And again, it's not about blame, because we all grew up in this. So it's just being mindful of what are those conversations we're having what are the conversations in our schools? What are we consuming in the media and calling those things out? I think we're seeing a lot of change and a lot of improvement, a lot more conversations, but we have to keep acknowledging the harm that does exist, that is so normalized in a way. Yeah. You know, speaking of Lizzo, thinking like Adele. When Adele's body changed, it was headline news around the world for months and months and months and months. You know, that constant like, oh, wow, she's so worthy now. Like those messages are repeated over and over. We have to talk about those and the harm that they're doing. And like I said, the people who are the most impacted by fat phobia, their voices need to come forward so we can understand their experiences. Yeah. And we need to just be having these conversations, checking in with our young people so that they can talk about concerns they have and it doesn't quietly get worse in the background.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I feel like I could talk about this all day.
Yeah, beautiful.
I feel like that's the hard thing about these episodes under the Whāriki is that we just are touching really
It's just
important.
a taster,
It's a little taster, and that's why it's so important that people know you and know that you know, what's your organisation again, so that if people want to look it up, they can.
So I work at Practice 371 as our practice. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Kate. I've loved that.
Thank
a
you
lot
for
of things
your
to like
learnings.
think about, eh?
Yeah. So much to unpack.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like what I've taken away. I really like the promoting health versus a number, right?
Yeah.
Chasing health versus body weight size or a fitness goal.
Yeah.
Just health.
Health in general. Yeah, feeling good and feeling joyful, right?
And finding out what healthy is to you.
Yeah, that's
And
the
then you
main
can have health at any size.
Yeah.
Before we round up and then close up, do you have any like lasting comments that you'd like to make that we may have missed, or any messages?
Thank you for having me. This has been really amazing. You guys have asked such interesting questions and really made me think about, like culture and how different cultures and different families have different relationships with food that might not match kind of like more what happens at school or more
Western narratives.
Western, So that's been really interesting. But I think they're just, I really love my job. I love this area. I love helping people. And I think the main thing is we just continue to hold a lot of hope for people that there can be change and recovery. I think that's the hardest part. So hope is,
Beautiful. What we're going to keep on striving for, right?
Yeah.
Well, awesome, guys. We're going to close up this episode. Thank you so much, Kate, for being here with us and sharing your knowledge and just everything about it. So I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. We're going to close off and we'll see you next one.
Catch you on the next episode. Cheers.